So my name is Gian-Paolo Mazzotta. I'm a custom tailor. I started on Queen West, but I've been in the fashion industry for about 14 years now. My favorite quote and kind of what I live by is a well-dressed man is a man dressed well for the occasion. So it's not necessarily you can look good, but if you're wearing a parka in the summer, it doesn't necessarily work. So it's more about being well-dressed for the occasion and for the weather. So that's kind of what I really live by. That's basically one of my quotes. Well, yeah, I've always was very interested in fashion, so I basically, a series of my events in my life kind of led me to fashion, so I ended up going to fashion school when I was about 19. So I started there. I did a 2-year at a trade school, and then from there I moved into working in the manufacturing sector of fashion. So I ended up working for some businesses out of China. So I basically coordinated production from American retailers and our factories in China. So I did that for about 7 years, where I developed a couple brands within the factory, and then I kind of got bored. You know, there's only so many. I was working for a lot of like Missy, like older women's brands, kind of developing. There's only so many quarter sleeve, boat neck t-shirts I can do. So I kind of got out of that. I had the opportunity where friends of mine had a store on Queen West. So I took a small space in the store. There's about 300 square feet in the back of a women's store. And it just kind of evolved from there. I had a small bit of inventory. I didn't know anything about retail. I knew fashion industry very well from the back end. Now I was on the front end, and I kind of just learned that. I started 9 months, I was in the back. I just basically had wives and girlfriends kind of bring back their boyfriends or husbands, and that's kind of how it grew. 9 months I took half the store. The following 9 months I ended up taking the whole store. So it kind of evolved very quickly. I wasn't expecting that. I had no capital investment. I had nothing. It just organically grew, and anything I made from the business kind of grew from there. I started with $5,000 worth of inventory. I think at the peak in my store I had over $100,000 worth of inventory. So it was a business that moved quite quickly, and it did quite well. I was on Queen Street for about 5 years. I realized it wasn't probably the best location for my business, just because I was kind of elevating my taste level. So I went from starting to sell a suit at $750 when I first started to now the average price of my suit is about $1,500 plus. So that kind of didn't work with the Queen West area. So I would have people that would kind of save up and kind of build up to be able to buy one of my suits. And it just went a little slower than it should have, even though it did very well. So then I moved here to a studio location where it's a little bit more private. I strictly focus on custom clothing. And then I also made another transition to now I run the bespoke department for Holt Renfrew. So they have a pilot store, the Holt Renfrew Men at 100 Bloor. And I basically run the bespoke department there, which is new to Holt Renfrew. And hopefully within the next coming months, we're going to actually be taking the program nationally. So I'll be doing that for them. So they needed someone with kind of that entrepreneurial background to do it because it's a business they never had. And it was a great opportunity for me because it was starting from scratch. So it's almost like my own business, but not, obviously. But it allows me to kind of grow and make things and train people and kind of grow and better my skill, my talent, my craft. So that's what I've been doing now. I offer a wide range of suiting. So I offer guys that are starting off in suiting because essentially a guy, we say you don't know suiting until your third suit. So you start off with something simple, a simple made to measure where we're kind of just choosing the fabric. You're within the styles that I offer, and then you kind of get a suit. So that starts off around, right now it's about $1,000 to $1,250, and you kind of get your foot in the door when it comes to made to measure because you're going to learn. There's things that you want or things that you think look good in the beginning, and then you're actually going to evolve your style, especially when it comes to suiting. So that's one, and then I offer an advanced made to measure where we're able to do a lot more with the styling, and that's kind of what I suggest we get into the second suit. So then that starts about $1,500 plus, and then we're kind of moving. You have a lot more choice in your style. Like I try to make this the most relaxed. I find people when they go for custom clothing, they're a little antsy. So I try to make this a very relaxed experience, and hence why I moved to a studio, because it makes it a lot easier to kind of have that personal touch. So that's kind of where we go with the advanced, and then I do the full bespoke where it's full carte blanche. You can do absolutely anything you want. So everything, we can kind of do all that. And then what differentiates me is me. So that's really when it comes to you're getting a suit made by your tailor. The person that measures you, the person that's consulting you is very important when it comes to it. That's why men are very loyal to their tailors, because you kind of build that relationship. So that's, I think I'm a very personal person, especially when it comes to building the relationship. And I don't impose my views on my clients. What I find a lot of tailors do, that they're very stubborn and they impose their look, their silhouette, their view on their client, which is not the way it should be. Like, we're making a custom suit because we're making that suit for you. So I think what you want is probably the most important thing in the suit. So I actually listen to that. I will offer my opinion, but at the end of the day, we do what you want. So that's kind of my major differentiation. I find with a lot of tailors, they do impose their view, they do impose what they want on the client. And that's kind of the biggest struggle that I have, say, working at Holt Renfrew, is because I'm dealing with a large amount of people that are bringing clients to me to make suits for them, and they're imposing their views when it's about what the client wants. That's what's really my differentiating thing. Plus, I cut a very good suit, so we fit you very well right off the bat. There's no kind of mistakes, but it's more of that personal touch. It's more of listening to what the client wants instead of telling the client what they want. Well, for every entrepreneur, I think the biggest challenge is capital, right? It's kind of pulling that capital together and actually understanding how much capital you really need. Because especially in the retail business, when you're actually carrying so much inventory, your capital investment with your inventory directly affects the amount of monthly sales you're going to get. And a lot of people don't understand that. I find a lot of new entrepreneurs want to kind of keep things slim and trim when it comes to their inventory. That doesn't really work. If you only have $20,000 worth of inventory, you're only going to get maybe $10,000 worth of sales a month. Now, can that carry what you're doing? So that was probably the biggest challenge for me, is actually understanding that, and then understanding the difference between top line and bottom line. So that was a big challenge when it came to, because yeah, you can do $50,000 in sales in a month. How much did you make? Right? That's more important, because you can do whatever you can to get those sales in, but if you're not making money, what's the point? And that's kind of why I downsized and I moved to the studio, because I realized 80% of my business was all custom. Why am I running a storefront retail? Why am I holding all this inventory? It doesn't make any sense. So I've kind of transitioned my clients just to come in, and it's been actually quite a smooth transition. And then now I'm kind of doing that same thing for Holt Renfrew. I'm basically showing them what you can do with such a small space, no inventory, and the amount of sales you can actually see. So we're probably square foot. My department is probably the most profitable brand that Holt Renfrew has, just because square foot, we only take up 100 square feet in the store, and we do just as much sales as a designer label. So it's a very profitable business. It's kind of where we've gone back to men wanting to actually make their suits. Everyone's tired of buying the mass-produced suits off the rack, because you can't, there's no individuality. You're not able to actually say what you want to say with your style in a suit that you're buying off the rack. And a lot of people now, everyone's more trim, everyone's working out. That causes a lot of problems when buying a suit off the rack, because it changes your body, which is not the norm that people make an off the rack suit for. So it's kind of become a niche, and it's become a very important niche in the suiting game. Because for a retailer, I can make all this money off of suits and hold no inventory. Bonus. You know, whereas when you have to carry suits, you have to carry a breadth of suits. You have to hang multiple units, multiple sizes. You don't even know if they're going to sell, right? You can do all the analytics you want, but at the end of the day, you may think it looks nice, the customer may not. But when it's custom, it doesn't matter. It's exactly what the customer wants. So you're kind of holding that inventory. And while you're not holding that inventory, which allows you to get a lot better gross margin and allows you to stay in business, right? Because that's one thing I see coming from Queen West. The turnover of young entrepreneurs, people don't really realize what it means to be an entrepreneur. And it's a lot of sweat. It's a lot of grinding. You're not going to go in unless your pockets are very full. You're not going to go in, which most entrepreneurs I find don't have full pockets. They kind of go in with a hope and a dream. And it's hard that way. So you kind of want to build that clientele, and you want to build that business.